All right, let's talk about something huge, broken authentication. You know, it's number 2 on the OWASP API Security top 10 for a really, really good reason. Think of it like this. It's the digital front door to your entire application. And if that door is unlocked, well, nothing else you do for security really matters, does it? So let's dive in.
So let me ask you a question that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. Could a hacker, right now, start your car? It sounds a little bit like science fiction, I know. But what if I told you this isn't a hypothetical? This is a real-world consequence of the exact vulnerability we're about to break down. It's a jarring reminder that these digital flaws can have very, very physical consequences.
And here's the proof. In a recently discovered hack, researchers found they could take almost complete control of certain Kia vehicles, and all they needed to start was the license plate number. They found a flaw in a dealership API, you guessed it, broken authentication, that let them register as a fake dealer. And just like that, they had the power to remotely unlock the car, start the engine, and even track its location, all because the API didn't properly check who was making the request.
That Kia hack is the perfect way to think about this. I want you to picture your API's authentication as the main lock on your house's front door. When that lock is broken, it doesn't matter if you have reinforced windows or a state-of-the-art alarm system. An attacker doesn't need to be sophisticated, they can just walk right in.
So what are we talking about, officially? Well, OWASP defines broken authentication as any vulnerability where those digital locks are just built wrong. This allows attackers to steal the keys, we call them tokens in the API world, or even simpler, just pretend to be someone else, like a valid user or even worse, an administrator. The key thing to understand is that this isn't about an attacker guessing a password, it's about them bypassing the entire identity check altogether.
Now, this is why this is such a big deal. Take a look at the risk assessment from OWASP. The exploitability is rated as easy, and that makes sense, right? Your login endpoints have to be public-facing. But look at the other side. The impact is severe. Once an attacker gets in, it's often a complete account takeover. They become indistinguishable from the real user. That combination of easy to exploit and severe impact, that's exactly why this is ranked number 2.
And you know, modern APIs have some unique challenges here. With older web apps, the server would remember you with something called a session. But modern APIs, they're often stateless. They rely on something called bearer tokens. A bearer token is basically a digital key that says, whoever holds this key gets access. It's incredibly flexible, but it also means that if an attacker steals that token, it's pretty much game over until it expires. Okay, so we know what's at stake, but how do attackers actually find and exploit these unlocked doors? Let's get into their playbook and look at some of the most common and, honestly, most devastating techniques they use.
First up is credential stuffing. This is brute force, but on a massive scale. Attackers get their hands on huge lists of usernames and passwords from other data breaches, you know, the ones you hear about all the time, and they just systematically try them on your API's login endpoint. In the 23andMe breach, this exact method allowed attackers to turn about 14,000 compromised accounts into access to 5.5 million user profiles. Why did it work? Because people reuse passwords. Everywhere.
Now, here's a really sneaky one. It's called the AUG-None attack, and it targets something called JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs. Normally, a JWT has a digital signature to prove it's legitimate. But in this attack, the hacker creates their own token, and in the header, they just tell the server that the signing algorithm is none. If the server is badly configured, it actually listens. It completely skips the signature check and lets the fake token right in. It's literally like showing a bouncer a fake ID that says on the front, you don't need to check this ID.
And check this out, because this is clever. Some modern APIs use GraphQL, which lets you bundle a bunch of different operations into one single request. Attackers love to abuse this. Let's say you have a rate limit of, 3 login requests per minute. Well, an attacker can create one single request that has hundreds of login attempts packed inside it. Your rate limiter only sees one request and thinks everything is fine. But on the back end, your server is getting absolutely hammered with the brute force attack. Your protection is completely useless.
Okay, that was the scary part. It's easy to see how bad this can get. But look, it is not hopeless. Far from it. Now we're going to pivot from the attacks to the solutions. It is time to talk about how we build a digital fortress with proper, robust locks on every single door. Building that fortress really comes down to 3 fundamental pillars. First, there's standardization. This means using battle-tested, industry-standard protocols like OAuth 2.0. Second is layered defense.
which is all about implementing multi-factor authentication, or MFA. And third is throttling, using smart, strict rate limiting to shut down those brute force attacks before they even get started.
Let's just focus on MFA for a second, because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You need a strategy. For any of your administrative accounts, MFA should be absolutely mandatory, no exceptions. For your regular users, you should strongly recommend it and make it easy to turn on. And for really sensitive operations, like changing a password or an email address, you should require it conditionally, forcing that user to step up their authentication at that critical moment.
And if you only take one single thing away from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Do not, under any circumstance, try to invent your own authentication system. Seriously. This problem has been solved by brilliant people who have spent decades finding every possible edge case and every flaw. Use their work. Use standards like OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect. They are, without a doubt, your best defense.
All right, let's bring this all home. We've defined the problem, we've seen how attackers operate, and we've outlined the core defenses. Now let's put this all together into a clear, actionable plan that you can use to go check your own systems right now.
So here are your marching orders. 1. Use established standards like OAuth. Don't roll your own. 2. Enforce MFA, especially for your admins. 3. Implement strict, fine-grained rate limiting on your login and password reset endpoints. 4. Make sure your tokens are short-lived and are being managed securely. And 5. Monitor everything. Log all your failed attempts and set up alerts for suspicious patterns, because you absolutely cannot stop an attack that you can't see.
So, we end right back where we started, with a pretty simple question. We've seen that broken authentication isn't some abstract theoretical concept. It is a wide-open door that can lead to car theft, massive data breaches, and total account takeover. So I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to go ask your teams, is your front door truly locked, or are you just hoping that no one ever tries the handle?